Hi, good evening, everyone. Okay. The session will be primarily a presentation with little bit of demonstration. Okay. Fine. Why database hardening matters? So, we know the database holds a lot of critical data for an enterprise, be it a financial institution, be it a defense organization, be it any large enterprises. It holds a lot of critical, sensitive, and confidential data. And CIA, anything that is compromising on confidentiality, integrity, or the availability of this database will mean a security incident. And we need to ensure that these three things have to be always maintain confidentiality of the data, the integrity of the data that is being stored, and the data should be available as and when it is required. A simple example, cost of a data breach. I think there are multiple slides to this regard. Database being a prime target for large attackers. Okay, that they could be state actors who take act on and taking confidential data of enemy countries, basically, or it could be regular adversaries, basically. They try and target databases for various gains. So a few examples let me talk about. LinkedIn in 2012. Okay, I think I was searching out on the internet for various well-known exploits, basically, and I think majority of these attacks have happened in the last 15 years plus, primarily because the internet proliferation has taken up and large-scale systems have got connected. You could see that more than 117 million users' credentials has been compromised. Very simple. They were just using an MD5 or SHA-1, which is more or less similar to what from a security perspective, it is equivalent to what MD5 equivalent security, and which is not to be used. Okay, and that's the primary target, and it has been compromised. And this is one of the most important attacks. I just want to ensure a business got closed just because the data got exposed. Okay, so this puts up the criticality of how security has to be taken when it comes to database protection. This resulted code spaces become extinct just because there was a data that got exposed or even wiped away. Basically, the data got wiped away. Okay, so what is in with PostgreSQL? The default PostgreSQL implementation that you take it from our community website, PostgreSQL. It is primarily, packaged in a way that it is developer friendly. So it encourages developers to install it and configure it and start working, do development on this. So it has got weak authentication methods, unencrypted communication, permissive access control, basically, access to everything, and limited visibility. It does not. Okay, let us discuss all these things and the file system risks. So how this can be addressed? In security world, we call it a security onion, right? Onion, you all know that it is multiple layers. It is a multi-layered security, right? So this is how, otherwise it is called as defense in depth, basically. So we take this approach. We will take network security. Okay, the network security. We will address network security, authentication and authorization, encryptions, logging and auditing, extensions. Basically, we use a lot of extensions with PostgreSQL, and any security compromise on these extensions can also lead into a compromise on the database itself. And how do we do hardening of the database person? Okay. First part is network security. And an example to this is again a MongoDB ransomware attack. Okay. This primarily happened because MongoDB's default installation was just that it allows port 27017, which is the default port of MongoDB, to be exposed on 0.0.0.0. There are network guys, they understand what the meaning of 0.0 is. All people on the network. If it's on internet, everyone on the internet can access this with a very, very weak authentication. So with this, what should we do? What is our learnings? Basically, we have to ensure our service, the database service, is always bound to the internal network segment, not one external network segment. That's first important aspect. You configure your firewall, allow list, enforce strong authentication, and disable public internet access. Again, this is again a similar thing. Imperva, again, it's a SaaS security service provider. It's a SaaS provider. They have both the SaaS and on-prem solutions. This is for the SaaS, and their cloud database was exposed. A similar incident. And again, there is a lot of impact in terms of being they are a security company. There are a lot of credentials that got lost. Okay, how do we get things done? I'm not sure whether it's visible. Yeah. So simple, the default Postgres installation allows bound to the local host because it's meant for a developer usage. A developer wants to install on his local system and then access it, but then it is local host. And in the remarks, they say if you want to have access, put star, right? So which means whichever, if the host contains multiple interfaces, an internal interface and an external interface, the service will be bound to all the interfaces. If you put star, it is going to be bound to all the interfaces. You always bound it to the required interfaces, whichever the interface that you would like to. If your host contains specific interfaces, private interfaces, and then you bound it to that. This is the first step that you take it up. You ensure your local firewall. Basically, every Linux system today contains a firewall, a native host-based firewall. Ensure your host-based firewall allows only port 5432, which is the native or the default PostgreSQL port. And again, we always, from a security perspective, we advise change this port as well to a non-standard port. But then allow only that port. Whichever the port you are allowing, allow that port. And this can be easily validated. Okay, let me see if we can get into demonstration slightly later. Second thing, go to the PGHPA configuration file. Okay, I will probably. Yeah, PGHPA configuration file. Everybody knows that it contains, you allow hosts, you allow which is the host from which host, which database, which user, and what type of authentication they are going to allow to be allowed. So we just, this is the default configuration in a PostgreSQL, okay, and which primarily allows all local connection and anybody on that host basically, because it also allows 127.0.0.1 on the host can be either through local is a Unix socket. Unix socket does not use any network interfaces. It directly connects to the local Postgres instance, or it can be allowed over TCP IP on port 127.0.0.1. But the method, that is the most unsecured thing. So anybody who have gotten access to that database server will be able to access it without any credentials. They don't need any credentials to access this. So if I'm able to do an SSH to my database server, I can get to access to the entire database. So that's the primary challenge. And generally, people add this last line, right? Host all, and we allow all the. So the first all stands for the database, all databases in that particular host. And for all the users, we generally allow from any network, and we allow with the password but the password is again an MD5. So this is the most, the riskiest configuration that I would put it across. Recommendation is to ensure that you allow only, comment out all those entries, whatever that were there, comment out all this. Primarily you ensure, so the differences now you could see. Here the primary part is, it is having a traffic that is allowed on each of this field. If you look at it, this is allowing a traffic on plain text. We are configuring it to allow only on SSL, and we are very specific which database, which user, and what is the network from which they could access, and what the authentication method should be. Scram SHA-256, which is the default secure access today at this point in time, and MD5 is no more recommended, or in fact in 18 you start getting this message, it is deprecated. MD5 is deprecated. Okay, you can allow local. For local, which is over the Unix socket, you may use pure, meaning you need to authenticate as a OS user, and that OS user should be also available within the database. Trust allows for any user, but pure at least controls the OS user. We will recommend, this is the basic recommendations that we go. I'm getting to the. So this is the hardening that you do with pghba.conf. And again, this is again a credential weakness which got SolarWinds. I do not know. This is just it's a monitoring tool, and their GitHub repository, one of the developers' GitHub credential was very weak, and with which codes were injected into their repository. Malicious codes were injected. These codes were compiled, sent out to many organizations. It is more than estimated is more than 18,000 plus organizations got their malicious code installed across the globe. This includes governments as well. And it resulted in multiple attacks. And I still remember this happened in 2020 during the COVID time, basically. And we ran across multiple customer places. We went and we have to either uninstall or there were a lot of attacks. In fact, because of this, there were a lot of attacks that happened. And this is this very simple. You use a very, very weak password. Developers primarily try to see, they keep accessing the database very frequently, and they try to keep the passwords kind of thing very weak for their convenience. It is not recommended. And from a production environment perspective, these are all again, as I said, Scrum SHA-256 has to be the minimum level of encryption that we need to enforce. Probably added to that, we'll also be recommending to implement a certificate-based authentication. If from an application server, you're going to access it, do a certificate-based authentication. And this is what we saw with the PGHBA. And important aspect is enforce password policy. Okay, there is an extension with Postgres which is called password check. Always implement this and get your passwords. You can't. With this, if it is implemented, it does not allow dictionary-based passwords to be installed. It ensures a minimum number of characters has to be there as part of your passwords. All of those things comes into play, and it also allows you to set expiry dates for your passwords. These are all very, very basic hygiene for passwords that we need to maintain. If these things are not met, in the other world, we always say like password is dead already. Password is no more a secure way of accessing a critical environment. So password alone is insufficient. Use external authentication if possible. Probably LDAP or Kerberos or PAM basically. LDAP or Kerberos is basically an Active Directory integration. Many organizations contains Active Directory, do integration with Active Directory if feasible. Because all these policies are by default are implemented organization-wide on your centralized identity provider basically. Whichever it could be an LDAP or an Active Directory, it is already there in place. And PAM, again, it's a Linux native authentication solution. It allows for integrating with various other security mechanisms. So we saw about networking, we saw about authentication, then the authorization basically. In a week, a user getting access to unwanted or an unprivileged user accessing privileged data. That happens, right? So I think many times we go ahead and create tables in public schema. Okay, you start working all your objects, create all your objects in the public schema, which is there in default, by default in Postgres. And one thing is, this public schema is by default permitted for all the users who access this database. And you will not be able to enforce the isolation at this level. So try to create a best recommendation. To enforce this, revoke your permissions on public schema for the public users basically, and ensure that every user have their own schema, or probably an application specific schemas be created, and all your table objects, everything getting created over there. This is again a critical aspect in terms of enforcing security on your database side, and this ensures a least privilege to be granted, at least from that perspective. Simple, an organization might have a sales department and HR department utilizing the same database. Create HR schema and where all HR related data is being stored, and sales department where all these things are getting, sales schema where sales related data is being used. As late as 2021, Microsoft Exchange allowed plain text communication. Okay, so plain text communication is no more to be used. I think we all know, I think since 2015 or 2016, there have been a lot of enforcement in terms of having transparent, you have transit level, encryption and transit has to be in place, at least for the credential pages. Okay, this was one of the recommendations. At least for user credentials, authentication pages have to be encrypted. This was, I'm talking about way back in 2010s and 2011s and 2012s, basically, because that point of time, compute was a scarce resource. Encryption puts a lot of load in terms of the compute, a lot of load in terms of on the compute, and people try to avoid encryption, but no more, this can be an excuse. With the kind of compute powers that are available, and again, the amount of attacks that is there in place, you have to enforce encryption everywhere. Encryption, data in transit has to be encrypted to avoid man-in-middle attacks. Your file system level encryption or data at rest encryption has to be in place. You either use file system's native encryption or utilize TDE. So these are the two aspects that you can enforce: a data at rest encryption, a column level encryption. Again, you can encrypt specific columns so that they are not visible to insiders. Whoever has gotten access to the database table, but then they need not be accessing a specific column. So it's a column level encryption. You can get that enforced as well. And as a best practice, all of these encryption needs keys. Never store your keys within the same server. Okay, that's the worst security that we does everything. It is just putting a lock and putting the key and say under the mat or at the top of your door, right? So something similar to that. Don't put your key in the server. On the server, never have your key stored. Either best way is to store it in a external KMS solution, key management systems. Today, I think, there were days when accessing these kind of services were very expensive. Taking a KMS service used to be very expensive. In the cloud era, I don't think that could be, and there can be any excuses for not utilizing a KMS services. So again, enforce TLS 1.3 in your database, which we saw. The host SSL always enforces a SSL communication. But for you to enable SSL, there are more to it. You will need to enable, you need to create certificates in your keys, put them across in your database configuration file so that The key here is this SSL mode communication, right? Verify is equal, verify hyphen full, basically. Let me again take it out here. I'm accessing from another system to the same server. So the server contains SSL certificate and the SAN. Basically, the subject name is Docker, basically, which is my host name of this server. But I'm trying to utilize an IP address with verify full. So this shows that I'm putting it across here. So the client validates that the server certificate is for Docker and not for this IP address, basically. Okay. The moment you use it with the name Docker, it gets connected. So your client, your SQL client gets connected over if you use other options. Okay, let me give you certain more options. In fact, you don't need to have the CA also. It does not even validate the CA. Okay. This mode, the require mode, does not even validate the CA, whether the certificate is signed by a proper CA or any of those things. Doesn't validate the CA itself, and it gets connected. Okay. And the other option we have is the just verify CA. So it validates the CA, but it doesn't validate the certificate. So again, it is with an IP address I'm able to access. It is just validating the certificate's CA, but doesn't validate the certificate itself. Okay. So ensure that we are using there are different methods, different ways to get this enforcement done. Ensure that you always have this verify full as part of your validations. So when you are going to get it connected via JDBC, I might have a different parameter to achieve the same functionality. When you are connecting with your Python driver, basically CytoPG, then it might have a different parameter to enforce similar functionality. Go through the documentation, enforce a full verification of your certificate. Mutual TLS, this is what I was talking about, client-based authentic. The client should also be using a certificate to get authenticated. So bit complex to implement, but then at least for servers, for application servers connecting to database server, we recommend this basically. Because in application servers, we don't change the passwords. The user that is being used to access the application, we don't change the password quite often, because it means going back into the application, changing the connect strings and other aspects. So those areas use the certificate-based authentication, so that without that certificate, even if the credentials get exposed, it cannot be utilized. Okay. Data at rest encryption. Okay. This is the file system level encryption. Lux basically is a Linux file system based encryption that is available. Utilize this. Again, while you create this, it will ask for a passphrase, and the first command actually creates which encrypts a volume. The second command actually opens the volume, and then you mount the volume and be able to utilize it for PostgreSQL. This is the sequence of commands that is allowed to do this. And this is, please understand the risk associated with this. See, more important is understanding security. You also need to understand all the risk associated with this. As soon as the volume gets mounted, okay, the database files are no more encrypted. Somebody having an access to the database server can copy those files and take it out. So that is where transparent data encryption plays a very critical role. Even if the database files are copied outside, it cannot be utilized without the key, without the decryption keys in place. Okay. PG Crypto. PG Crypto is utilized, or it's an extension basically that is utilized to encrypt on the fly. You will be able to encrypt and store data in the database and then restore it, decrypt back basically when you are accessing it. So this is what it can be utilized for: seamless encryption and decryption of the data while data is stored in a specific for a column, specific column level. You can do this part. Same warning here again: don't use your keys as easily accessible within the system. For this, probably use an environment variable. When using an environment variable is not recommended. Use it as safe as the safest approach that it can be taken up, because it is primarily used from the application perspective. So, never hardcode your keys again within the application as well. The data breach at Marriott, 500 million guest records got exposed over 4 years of period. So if you could see between the previous challenges and this data breach, the important aspect is the adversary was inside their network for 4 years without being undetected. Okay, for 4 years, adversary was residing and he was doing all kinds of data exfiltration being there, but it is undetected. The reason? There is no proper monitoring. We don't monitor logs. We don't monitor. The Marriott team had not monitored logs. They have not did a proper SIM integration. No anomaly detection was there in place. That resulted. And similar case with Yahoo as well. Here, the worst case, the attacker attacked and he deleted the logs as well. So which resulted in, so it is just not, logs are not monitored, but the logs are deleted. So that was not even able to be traced basically. There were challenges basically. So look at these things. These things are giving a different insight to security. So we talked about network security, authentication, authorization, and then encryption. The fourth one is this part, which is primarily your monitoring. With all security in place, without proper monitoring, your systems are still at risk. PostgreSQL allows excellent logging options available with you, to you. Okay, it's just that you need to get them configured properly. All these logs have to be configured properly. There are different parameters in the system that allows us to configure the logs. First, the system could be as strong as what the logs you are getting generated. You need to create context to the logs. Contexts are information that are associated. If there is an access that is being done, I need to know which is the username that is being used to access, what is the IP address from which that is being accessed. So this information will not be available in the default configuration of PostgreSQL. So you have to manually enable this. Once you enable this, the context data comes into play. This has to be done. While that is being done, you also ensure that you have a proper log retentions policies in place. The log retentions, you can't store the logs just for 1 week or 1 day. It's of no use. And an adversary getting inside a network and actually triggering their payload, generally in a typical medium complex environment, it takes about 2 to 3 months basically for an adversary to trigger a payload from the date they enter, and that's a complete chain. Okay, chain of action that needs to be done before he trigger the payload. The payload trigger could be a deletion of data, exfiltration of data. Any of those things could be a payload, but then this generally takes about 2 to 3 months. And if you have to do it, you have to ensure minimum 90 days of logs are being retained in an enterprises. If you need to do proper auditing, let me try and see if I can get this information. Okay, this is the default configuration of the logs that is available in Postgres. Okay, and it doesn't provide you with any proper information. This is something that has been configured basically. If you could see, you give a command, there is a syntax error basically. Okay, this denotes the user, this denotes the database, and this denotes the client IP from which the request has come. So you will be able to create this contextual information by properly configuring your log formats, which will not be available in the default logs. And let me also show you. It's quite simple. It is not very challenging to do these actions. So set your log levels basically. It ensures proper informations are being captured, and this log line prefix basically, it gives you the user, database, and the host. These three parameters gives that information. %U, %D, and %H. It is just that we need to configure. The other two aspects, let me quickly go through the other two aspects. Sorry. So PG audit, an extension that allows for more granular auditing that can be enabled. Please, this is maybe the presentation should be shared to the readers. We will get this information. So extension security risk. Always ensure that trusted extensions are being used in your environment. At least there are 4 basic extensions that needs to be installed in every environment. One is PG audit. The other one is PG crypto for your encryption decryption. Then there is a extension called set user basically. Set user, you can use set user to have advanced logging parameters for super users basically. This set user extension allows a normal user can log in, and then if they are permitted, they can do a set role and then change to a super user. That can be, it triggers a lot of advanced logging. So and this password check, which we discussed about, enforcing the password complexity and other hygiene to be set. So always look for what are all the extensions that is existing, and any unwanted extensions, remove it. Okay, it is going to be an attack surface reduction for you. Do your installation only from secure sources. Always validate checksums. Whenever you get a new RPM file or a dev file, do a checksum validation. The checksum has to be validated before you get that installed. Validate the source of your file log. Do not just don't go for a Google search and try to download an RPM or a thing from an unknown sources basically. File system permissions have to be, this comes as part of the last layer where we have to do OS level hardening, primarily to ensure your database, the location in which your database files are stored, the location in which the configuration files are stored, and the location where the logs are being stored have to be properly secured. Okay, so how do you get that enforced? There are different methods to get that enforced. Most important, okay, we are talking about database. The most important aspect is the backup. Okay, and have always an immutable backup. A backup, if you are able to take a backup and ensure that it is immutable, it cannot be modified. So ransomware today, all of you know about ransomware. The primary target for ransomware, when there is an adversary who is inside your network and he wants to, before triggering the production, is going to hit the backup server. He is going to delete the data or encrypt the data on the backup, and then only he is going to come back. Always have an offline backup to avoid this part. That's the most important aspect. Okay. Resource controls are quite essential activity, because if you give immense resource, it might even take, see, an adversary is doing some activity, there could be a performance impact, but if the resources are very high on the system, these things will go unnoticed. So this needs a continuous monitoring. Say simple, if you have 100 connections and there is an adversary is trying to create more number of connections basically, and if you fail to monitor all these things basically, I mean, if there is a problem, suddenly you go and change 100 connections to 200 connections, you see number of connections high, without validation, we are going and changing it to 200 connections. That be an impact basically. So there are different queries to monitor. Most important aspect is this SC Linux. SC Linux, again, a security extensions to Linux basically. This has to be enforced. This allows your process, the Postgres process, to be run in a confined environment basically. And even if something gets compromised, Postgres, even something gets compromised on the server, Postgres may not be impacted basically. So this is very, very important. You get this configured, and this primarily comes with Red Hat and its variants. Okay, so this is the overall layered defense checklist: network authentication, encryption, logging and auditing, system install, and operations. This is your checklist. You can again follow these things. So what happens? The final thing, Bank of America, zero data loss. They had a lot of attacks, but they had implemented the complete layered defenses. Whatever we have been discussing, something similar to that or even better than this, they have implemented it with so much of intrusions into their network. It was detected, monitored, and averted, basically. Yeah. So these are these things. Are there any specific questions and answers?
Reduce the operational risks primarily. If anyone accidentally changes something like auditing, like that's
you have to do auditing. Okay, the only way, it is the frequency at which you do auditing, but there are automated way of doing things.
Automation.
There is a select query. See, you have a select query. With this select query, you'll be able to, because the PGHBA, whatever there in the PGHBA is, you can access it from a select query within the database. So you run that query. Then if you have a select query, it becomes easy for you to do an automation, right? You do an automation and continuously monitor. If there is, the output gets changed, generate an alert. That's it. So it's available there.
Fine, sir.
Sorry, I have this command. Yeah. Anything? Any more questions?
When we change it from trust to the SSH SCA, right? We can do that.
Scram
share. Yeah, we can change that manually, correct?
Yes.
But does it get automatically reverted?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the command that I was talking about. Okay, I was doing on the server where it is not secured, basically. If you run this command from a select command, you will be able to get all the information, and it cannot automatically get reverted back.
Okay.
Just to give you the information, it is persistent.
Okay.
It is persistent to the file system and is not changeable unless otherwise somebody goes and changes it. And that's why we always say, who has got access to those configuration files? It has to be secured. Those both PGHBA file as well as the PostgreSQL configuration file have to be secured. It should not be allowed for modification even by super user. If super user is doing modification, that needs to be through audits. Subject to audits. It has to be subjected to audits.
And that is definitely recommended using a command line interface only. Is that something mandatory, or you can actually access the file system as such, right?
Yeah, if you access the file system, as long as you have an access to the file system, there are environments where access to file systems are restricted.
Correct.
Right? And only through automated ways, like a change management system, Chef, Ansible kind of a stuff, they get the files updated. So that means there is a audit trail that is getting generated whenever the files are getting modified, basically.
Sir, while installation, we will actually turn the source code. So we will make it lightweight and a custom path, such as library path. And,
Sorry?
We actually install PostgreSQL
Okay.
via source code. So we can give a custom path.
Correct.
That will make, as admin, user friendly. And there is no issue with our team, and the developers are difficult to access that any DB connections like that commands. So in ShaktiDB that is available, source code installation?
Source code based installation, no. Today it is not available. We only distribute binaries.
Okay, in future?
Yeah. Future, yes. There is an option to,
Because
we will be opening up our source code basically.
okay, thank you.
So, is that any specific reason that you would like to take it up? Basically, you want to do a custom paths.
Yeah, custom path as well as we use a specific Unisocket path and binary libraries for everything a separate path, as well as a lightweight also. Specific modules only we enable for PostgreSQL.
First, when there is a best practice that is available, which is used by globally, we will recommend, because that has been validated by multiple people. It is just not we do it, right? It is globally, a lot of people are validating whether these are best practices basically. So it is always recommended. If there is something that you are doing it, I will recommend you discuss with the community and validate it as well. Basically. Okay.
Actually, my question is at a process level.
Okay.
See, when I have a security mechanism implemented at all the layers of the system, do I still need a monitoring solution? I am only allowing the secure operations to happen. So, what is the additional value it provides when I have a monitoring solution?
In an ideal scenario, the answer could be no. But we never live in an ideal world at all, basically. That's the challenge, right? So, there could be some human error that might be happening. And we need to definitely do a monitoring on the system, basically. Okay. Simple. Forget about it. You have made certain changes, made your configurations, everything done, right? There is a new vulnerability that has come. Okay. Discovered. Vulnerabilities are discovery. So there is a new vulnerability that is discovered. There is an exploit that is happening. And there is some action that is being done on your database server. If you don't monitor it, those things could be in the logs, basically. If you don't monitor it, it is something that so it has to be done, it has to be done. You need to do that.
Access your, if you encrypt the data, even then also, the people can steal the data or corrupt the data.
Corruption of the data is possible. I modify the data. I don't need what is the source. I don't need to know what is the source. I can still go ahead and put some random value there. I can make it corrupted, basically. The data can be corrupted, first part of it. Second thing is, we talked about CIA. There are three informations, right? I am going to make the data unavailable to you, or I will be making the data, the integrity of the data can be changed. That is possible with the encryption as well. Encryption only addresses the confidentiality possibility, basically. It is not addressing integrity or the availability part of it. So you have to address all the three overall. Only then the system is secure.
So what is the difference between you told no, trust and MD5? The authentication method you told no?
No. Trust is something like, I trust. That's it. I don't have any passwords, nothing. I just give a username, I will be allowed to log in. Okay. So it is without a password, I get login.
Okay.
MD5 is still a password is asked, but the storage of this password is very weak within the database, and it is not recommended approach. That is why it is not a recommended approach. In fact, you will be able to capture. If you are very good at networking on the network, you can see your password. You can see the MD5 value, and these MD5 values, there are different ways to reverse the MD5 values and not reverse, match the MD5 value, and we will be able to get the original value.
I have one
No.
half of what he asked. What was the confidentiality we are encrypting the data at rest?
Right.
But it is prone to brute force, right?
Yeah, definitely. See, that is why we said the key have to be secured somewhere else. Your encryption key, the encryption key is 256-bit, maybe AES 256. It's a 256-bit. And today, with the current hardware compute in place, AES 256-bit cannot be broken. That in place.
So it cannot be brute force.
Brute force. Basically, the only way decryption is tried without a key is brute force. Basically.
How a outsider will access your database when you set the things, no? I mean, the host values, host IP.
Yeah.
Host IP address in the HBA configuration, no? So, even if you set the IP address, anybody else can access your database?
As I said, it is multiple levels of security that we have to enforce. One is, you can set the IP address on your HBA file. You can set your firewall, personal firewalls in the OS. That can also restrict access, basically. Any of this, one of this is good enough, basically, to protect. But we always say, have all the three. If there are three methods, implement all the three methods so that it is more secure. Even if one is broken, the other two can taken care. It can take care of it. It is like putting our jewelry inside the locker, locking the cupboard locker, and coming out and locking the main door, right? So we have three different levels of locks. It's the same way we have to do that.
Whether anybody can break our key value, the key value which you are setting for the encryption, no?
See, the key value for the encryption, at this point in time, with the current hardware, current hardware that is in place, basically, decryption is not possible if you have a 256-bit key. Okay. But we can't guarantee it. Okay. With the advancement in computing, this will be broken one day. So people think that by then, the confidentiality of this particular data need not be maintained, could be one of the ways, or they might decrypt and encrypt with a new advanced encryption keys. That will be the method by which they will be securing that data.
Okay.